Hi, I'm Mary. People don't believe that GMOs are bad because they assume that something would have stopped them from being everywhere if they were bad. And that logic doesn't work because the reason they believe that is because of what we learned maybe 20 years ago about who the FDA and USDA was and the place of the marketplace and consumers and science and universities. All of these things protected us once, and so we have to update that information. So go to the Center for Food Safety's website, truefoodnow.org, and get up to date about who these people really are now. Monsanto owns, I think, 40% of our seed right now. They bought up all the seed companies, and they're in an antitrust investigation. But they have taken their tactics beyond the normal scope of what an industry can influence. Let's talk about science. University deans have been known to take money from them and refuse to publish anything bad. So nothing damning done by the universities of those particular deans will ever come out. No research will be allowed. And as far as the studies that are being done, since researchers have to buy the seed and sign an agreement that they will let Monsanto or Syngenta or Bayer or whoever go ahead and review their data before releasing, guess what? The studies are weighted. Now they're not allowing the release of bad information about them. So only good things are let through. It's incredible. And they have been allowed to do voluntary studies. Here's a voluntary study. They took a genetically modified cow and cloned it, and they say, well, when it gets to your plate, all the deformities will be removed because they're obvious. Genetic deformities are not necessarily obvious, but nevertheless, they said, well, there are no genetic deformities. Here's how they did that study. They took out all of the deformed cattle, and then they ran the good ones through a counter, and they discovered that there were 0% deformities. That's what you get when you do voluntary studies. That's what we're getting out of the FDA and USDA is research like that. They don't even have to do anything. Did you know that test crops don't even have to notify the USDA or FDA? It's incredible. So, also a concern with those agencies is insider trading, I've heard happens, and we'll have to investigate that, won't we? We would assume that USDA and FDA employees, since they know the newest products, and it would be a conflict of interest as to what they allow, can't buy Monsanto stock. I don't think that's the case. I think they can, and they do. In fact, the USDA and the FDA itself buys stock in Monsanto. So, and Michael Taylor used to be part of Monsanto. He is now the head of the FDA for our food safety. It's incredible. They are not what they used to be, and they're going to be investigated, I'm sure. So, what about the farms and the marketplace? Well, the farms have had their seed contaminated when they buy non-GMO seed. It's not actually non-GMO. We're just uncovering that now. And that's in the seed, let alone the pollen blowing freely in the wind that we know to contaminate crops. There's also the fact that the marketplace is refusing to buy non-GMO seed because Monsanto is controlling them, because they give such a good share of their business that they can tell them what to do. And that's one thing they tell them: don't buy non-GMO seed. So you can't save your seeds like farms used to. That's how farming was done. Can't do it. Have to buy these packages of Roundup with Roundup-resistant corn and soy and so on. They also can't get loans. Banks won't give farmers loans to farmers that are not using GMO. Triple sec genes. In other words, like 3 different kinds of genetically modified traits are being put in one organism, and that's the only thing banks will give loans to, because they've been sold this lie that they are better. In fact, they are worse. They are not a fit organism. They increase the pathogens in the soil in a huge percent, year after year, more and more. And now the soy is starting to die. It's starting to just be infested. And the corn is all warped looking, and it's not coming up, and there's all sorts of problems. So the farmers are probably like out of the GMO business if we give them an alternative of sustainable farming. But that's the state of things right now. You don't know what GMOs are necessarily because they're not labeled. The United States is going against the rest of the world in this issue. The WTO was so upset that we would not agree to simply labeling GMOs that it said, we'll come back later and discuss this. And when we do, USA, you had better agree to labeling. We just outright are refusing to label GMOs because they said if people knew they wouldn't eat them. If people knew that they were, oh my gosh, okay. So current news is, and you can see this on truefoodnow.org, which is the Center for Food Safety, don't eat the fish. Soon we'll have genetically modified salmon unless we win this battle against Goliath. That's the first animal. And after that will be pigs, the emotional intelligence of a third grader, and we're going to mutate them and experiment with them genetically, violating them. And they are very sensitive emotional animals. So think about that when you eat the pork that's genetically modified. Also, that our genes are compatible, very compatible. There's so much similarity between human genes and pig genes. Obviously, we're very different, but in the ways as far as mixing DNA, no problem. So, do you want to eat that? We talked about in the health risks video about transfer of genes, but we just want you to know that right now they're giving no notice and not allowing the public to find out that they're going to roll out the salmon. And when we do roll it out, it's not just going to be on your plate unlabeled with this IGF-1 growth hormone in it that causes cancer, I believe. I think it's been all but proven. You can check that out on the Physicians for Social Responsibility Campaign for Safe Food website, which is Oregon PSR, and then click Safe Food. Look at the Know Your Milk brochure. They don't say RBST, recombinant bovine growth hormone, RBGH, all the same thing. They don't say it causes cancer. They just make a really good argument that it probably does and has. And we do know that it hurts cows, for sure. It hurts them, and it's environmentally bad, and it's a source of antibiotic resistance. So you can look at that and say, that's going to be in fish. But the farmed fish escape into the wild all the time. It's a very irresponsible industry. It's hurting our salmon industry and hurting all the fish industry. It's also hurting nature, obviously. So this is going to escape. And when it does, there are repercussions that we can predict, like all salmon dying. Not kidding. They grow twice as fast. They'll take over. So, and all of this stuff you can read about and see what our policy is. Our policy is completely pro-GMO, and it's against people having the right to safe food. So until something is done, no, the general public is not going to know unless we really expose this truth. So when you don't eat genetically modified food, you have a huge impact. And we're going to talk about in another video what happens when you simply stop eating it. But please remember that this is not, as my friend says, it's a process, not an event. It took Ernie and I 9 months, and it took my near botany degree. I'll have it in 7 more credits. It took time and money to do it. That's what we're here for. We are bringing our knowledge to you and support, so that if you are in the store, you can call us and find out if that ingredient you're looking at is a GMO. And we will do anything to help you. So please make use of us, because if you stop eating genetically modified food, you are going to do so much for this food safety.